Hi, everyone. Welcome to another WPLN Facebook Live. WPLN is known as the Women's Public Leadership Network, and we are a 501c3 national nonpartisan nonprofit organization that is dedicated to inspiring, educating, and training women to run for all levels of office in the United States. My name is Caroline Richardson, and I am a fellow with WPLN this year. I'm a student at the University of Georgia, and I'm thrilled to welcome y'all to this month's Tips from the Trail program. We are joined today by Jordan Fuchs, who successfully ran Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger's campaign and now serves in his official office. Jordan, I know your experience extends far beyond what I just mentioned. Could you share a little bit more about your background with us?
Thank you, Caroline, and I appreciate you. And I also attended the University of Georgia, and that's where I launched into my career. And so my background is in public relations, and I graduated from the Grady School of Journalism and immediately moved to DC. And I had these dreams of running very significant campaigns. And then the reality hit, and I moved back to Georgia and ran a lot of local campaigns. And I had a lot of fun doing that. So in my experience, I've run everything from the federal level down to city council, and that's been very exciting for my career. And so under my belt, I had a couple of very significant campaigns before I ever joined the Secretary of State's office. In 2018, I was with the political consulting firm called Landmark Communications and was helping with everything from direct mail to TV production to polling. And so that's where I got my start. Worked there for 6 years. And in 2018, I had a client who won a statewide race, and that was Brad Raffensperger. And the Raffenspergers asked me to join their team, and I became their chief of staff shortly after their win. And it's been quite the journey. And I'm sure a lot of people got to see a little bit about what we all went through, but it ended up being very successful, and we ran a great campaign, and now we're here. So
That's awesome. Thank you again for joining us, Jordan. To get started, I just wanted to hear a little bit more about what got you interested in politics. I know you talked about going to DC and then back to Georgia, but what initially kind of spurred your journey?
So what spurred it was my mom had always volunteered on different campaigns, so she definitely inspired that. And then her best friend ended up being my longtime mentor, Mark Roundtree, who owns Landmark Communications. So I worked there for 6 years, and I had a lot of support. Obviously from my parents and my family, and also from my mentor who taught me everything I know. And he had run thousands of campaigns. I wanted to run thousands of campaigns too. And he was able to teach me some of the pitfalls to avoid. And I learned everything I know from him. And so learned polling and direct mail and everything that involves a campaign. And I really lucked out because I had that foundation before I ever ran a campaign on my own.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I know that mentorship is such an important role kind of in getting started. And, we love to focus on that here. But now kind of moving into your current experience, we all know that campaign work is not easy, but it can also be really rewarding. So can you tell us what kept you in the campaign world and how you got to leading the Secretary of State's race?
Thank you. So in 2018, I think I was desperately trying to get out of campaign world. I was taking on a very sleepy, quiet administrative job. And that's what the Secretary of State's office had always been up until the 2020 election. We faced, I remember telling the secretary and his family, I was like, I think the biggest thing that we're going to deal with is implementation of voting machines, which on its own is a massive project, and we delivered it with a lot of success, mostly due to Gabriel Sterling and Brad Raffensperger's background in management and making sure that this particular rollout went well. Well, surprise, the pandemic hit, and things very interesting things occurred in 2020. And so we saw everything from counties who really struggled to get through the primary in 2020. And we were the team that was focused on making sure that was corrected in the general. the general happened, we were very pleased to announce that there weren't any lines in the 2020 election. And we had really honed in on some of the problems that the counties had faced in 2020 and corrected those. And then politics took over from there, where there was a particular individual who hadn't won, and he was pretty upset about it. And so navigating through that was very interesting. And then and so how I got back into the campaign side was, everyone thought my boss was not going to win re-election, and I had always run his campaigns. It was going to be up to me to take on this challenge, and I did. And the joke was, well, who else is going to do it? So long story short, we pulled a team together who I had the opportunity to basically rebuild. I rebuilt our fundraising programs. I rebuilt the vendors that we were going to use on that campaign from scratch, and that was an interesting time period for me. And then we won. And the big lesson here that I learned on the campaign is that I knew I could run a campaign with a fellow consultant, but could I also do it on my own? And that's what I learned this time around, is that my background was strong enough to handle that. I knew what I was doing, and I delivered a win, and one of the more difficult campaigns I've ever run. So it was very fun from that standpoint.
Yes, I know. I remember that election it was my first time working as a poll worker in that primary in 2020. And so I think that y'all handled it really, really well. And so I know that kind of with all of that going on, it can be difficult to find a work-life balance. And so do you have any tips or tricks that you could share with us about how you balance that as the campaign manager and now as your job in the official office?
Yeah. In all of my 20s, and you'll learn this too, I did not have a work-life balance. It was, I wanted to focus on my career, and I did. And for the first 10 years of my career, it was all career all the time. I was willing to take phone calls at all hours of the day. And what's fun about political consulting is you will have clients who work full time, and then you'll have clients who are retired. Those retired clients wake up at 6 a.m. and they will start calling you. And the clients who work full time, they're going to start calling you around 6 p.m. That's when they're off work. That's when they're available. And so when I was in my 20s, I sacrificed a lot of time and relationships that looking back, I don't know if it was worth it. But long story short, there was no work-life balance in the first 10 years of my career. And then I was able to find it when I took an official role with the Secretary of State's office, and learned from those mistakes of maybe I was working a little too much and for too long, and I needed to develop my family and what I wanted out of my life instead of just focused on building somebody else's career. And so I finally found it, oddly, in the 2020 election cycle. I was able to really reprioritize what I wanted out of my life. And I had been a political consultant coming out of the Republican side of things. And I took on a big task and delivered. But long story short, if you're going to live your entire life in politics, you're going to be really quite miserable. And so if you have to find that balance, otherwise you're going to go insane. So, and I think I finally found that balance. The other thing I will say is that these jobs are incredibly stressful. And if you are not actively getting ahead of that stress, you're going to have some problems. And one of the best things, I'm going to sound nuts, one of the best things I ever started doing was hot cold therapy. So sitting in a sauna and then going to, an ice dip, which sounds miserable to a lot of people, but that is how I managed the really intense stress that I faced. And hopefully nobody on this call ever has to face the things that I have seen in the last 4 years. But if you do, give me a call and I'll give you some tips as to how to manage through some of that stress.
Wow, that's some great advice. I've never heard of the hot cold therapy before, so I may have to try that sometime.
There's tons of studies out there that show that type of therapy helps you manage through those stress and those crises that you you may face in life. And that's what I found that worked for me. Something else might work for you.
That's a great tip. Thank you. So I know we've talked a little bit about balance and we've talked about some of the negativity and the struggles that you faced throughout your career. And I feel like oftentimes there is a lot of negativity that arises on the campaign trail. And so are there any kind of additional tips on how you can handle that and maybe turn it into something positive or just not let it get in the way of the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So this is a life lesson I recently learned, and I'm stealing it from a fellow lady who is in leadership. And she told me, Jordan, people are going to say whatever they want. That's their free speech. But what you need to start focusing on is exactly what you want to accomplish, and you treat everything else as noise. And so she finally verbalized exactly what I had been doing for the last 10 years, whether it was in a campaign or an official capacity at the Secretary of State's office. I had my set goals and I was going to reach those goals, whether somebody agreed with me, supported me, thought we were all politically dead. I was going to ignore all the noise. And that's exactly what I did. And it's what you have to do. What a lot of people don't realize is whether you're on the consulting side or you're a candidate, when you put your name on the ballot or you decide that you want to run a campaign, automatically 50% of the population hates you. And that's really shocking for some clients that I've had who, whether you're a famous football player or whether you're in business, a lot of these people who run for office, they think everyone loves them. They don't realize that once you put your name to that ballot, it's a very different scenario. So you got to stay focused, put your blinders up, and be persistent. And I am persistently annoying, and I'm going to continue to go after exactly what I want to do and what my clients want to accomplish. And I ignore the noise because it is exactly that. It's just noise.
Mhm. Ignoring the noise is such a great tip. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Being a woman on the trail comes with its own specific set of challenges. And can you tell us more kind of about your experience as a woman leading a campaign on the trail?
I have a feeling it feels a whole lot like what men feel. I mean, it's very stressful. You have to actively find ways to management. You have to have family and friends around you who understand that you may not be at that birthday party and you're going to miss some family events because of insert political, event here. And I've been lucky to have that. And I think women in particular, and a lot of the women that I have worked with on the campaign side, whether they're running or whatever, the key difference that I've seen between how men face issues and how women face issues is that men will not think through a problem very quickly. They will be very decisive. They won't think through it, and they're going after whatever they're trying to do. Whereas women are incredibly methodical. They may not make that decision as quickly as a man, but at the end of the day, once they make that decision, they're a go as well. And that's something I have had to balance with my clients, especially my female clients, is, hey, we need to get this done today, and I'll put a deadline on it so that they know that this particular mail piece or this approval on a TV ad needs to happen. You don't have a month to think about it.
Yeah. In addition to kind of the speed of decision making, do you think there are any other reasons why we don't see as many women in top positions in the campaign world?
Yeah, I think I met you at UGA, and I've met a lot of students who have asked me that question, and I think it is it's very clear that not a lot of people know that these jobs exist. Political consulting is a rare thing to do. There's only a handful of us in the state of Georgia. I'm sure there's a handful of us in other states as well. And I think people don't always know what that path is. And so women and I've done a good job of it. I know a lot of my mentors have done a good job of showing women a path to success. And these jobs, we kind of pointed out earlier, they're very stressful. And I can't imagine why anybody wants these very difficult jobs. But at the end of the day, if somebody is there supporting you and mentoring you through that process, you're going to be successful.
I think that's such a good point. And growing up, I don't know about you, but I was the girl that always loved social studies and was always interested in kind of learning
Yes.
about the civics. But it was a struggle of how to take that passion and that interest and turn it into a viable career path. And I think for many women, kind of in my day and age, there haven't previously been a lot of role models. And so it's exciting to see people who are paving the way and who are interested in giving back and mentoring people through careers like political consulting and things like that, that previously, I didn't realize was an opportunity. You grow up and you want to be an astronaut or you want to be the president or things like that. And so to know that these careers exist as well, and that is something accessible, I think is very important.
Absolutely.
So, kind of just in general, what are your other tips and advice for women who are interested getting into this campaign world? Just kind of on the mentorship track here.
Yes. So the best advice that I was ever given is find somebody who does what you want to do and go learn from that person. These people are incredibly accessible, and for me, I lucked out because that person ended up being my mother's best friend from high school. And so I had the opportunity to learn from somebody who my family trusted, and really invested time into teaching me what I know now, which is if I need to go recreate an entire political consulting firm, I can do that. And I don't think I want to again, but I know I can. So that would be my advice is seek out those who, if you're interested in political consulting, go find somebody who does it and learn from them. You may not make a single dime for several years. Hopefully you do, but that knowledge is really important. And a lot of people really want to impart what they've learned in life onto the next generation. So easy to find mentors, find a good one that you trust, and learn as much as you can from them. And then also be cognizant that mentors eventually do become competitors, and they're very good ones too, because they taught you everything you know. So mentors know that as well. So be cognizant of what they're not willing to teach you. And one of the things that I learned was I was learning a whole lot about the production side of the political consulting world and not a whole lot on the data management side, probably because the person that I was learning from didn't know it either, and he had always outsourced it. So I supplemented that education with data management at night, or a couple of classes here and there. And then by the time that I got to a campaign that I was going to run on my own, I knew how to manage that data. And one of the cool parts that happened for me on the campaign was everyone was telling us we were in a runoff. Everyone was telling us we were going to lose. And I was like, I've run these numbers and I know exactly who's voting. And I'm pretty sure we're at 52%. And I was right. And that was fun to kind of see my strategy in place, see that my numbers were correct, and that I could actually run those numbers and come out with a result that was very real.
Yeah, Jordan, it's very evident that you've worked so hard throughout your career and that you're really passionate about what you do. What kind of makes it worth it for you? Like, why do you continue to put forth all this work?
Absolutely. And this is what I'm reminded by my family of, is it's the win. I mean, once you win and once you get a client into office or whatever it is, the win clears all memory of anything horrible that happened in a campaign. Working late, working long hours, all the stress that you might go through, the attack ads that you have to deal with, the whisper campaigns, all of that goes away after the win. And that's really, really interesting. And that's what kind of keeps me going in all of this is I get to work for people who do amazing things. They're great people. The Raffenspergers have taken very good care of me throughout my career. And I don't think I would work for anyone else in this position. And very thankful to them. And I'll continue to attract really great clients in the future. And I'm not worried about that. But long story short, it really is that win that kind of keeps everything moving. Because think about it. If you continuously lose, why would you stay?
True. Yeah, that's so awesome. Well, I just wanted to thank you again, Jordan, for joining us today and for being so open and sharing more about your experience, as well as imparting some advice and some tips on women who are also looking into go into a similar career as you. We just appreciate you being here today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation.
Of course. And if any of you guys have any additional questions for us, feel free to email at hello@womenspublicleadership.net. And don't forget to stay tuned for next month's Tips from the Trail program. This is a monthly program that happens the second Tuesday of every month. So we will have another one coming up in March, and we're excited to have you guys join us once again. Thanks.